Hey, this is Gilder from PreSonus, and in this video, I want to give you a tour of Studio One from PreSonus. I've been a Studio One user for the better part of a decade, and I only recently came on staff with PreSonus as a product specialist. I was a Pro Tools guy, loved Pro Tools, and then somehow along the way, I tried Studio One, I got hooked on it, and I've been using it since version 2. We're on version 5 now. Now, rather than opening up the software and doing a boring software demo where I show you a bunch of things and click a bunch of things and tell you a bunch of words, we're going to use Studio One to make some music today as a part of this presentation. Because I think that's just way more fun and way more effective and way less boring. So let's record a vocal. I've got a song pulled up here. I've got a vocal track ready. I'll press R to record enable. Let's get in there and then I'll talk to you about some of the cool things Studio One can do. Check, check. Check. Here we go.
I don't wanna look, I don't wanna see what's under the hood. Don't wanna be anything but good, and I can't be, no, but something's there, and I act like I don't care, blissfully unaware, and it's killing me.
Okay, so we've got a vocal recorded. Let me turn off that reverb. My biggest fear with this whole video would be that every time I'm talking to you, there's reverb happening, so there's not. I'm excited about it. So, what is Studio One? Well, PreSonus, we've been around for 25 years. That's what that shirt says. And we started off as a hardware company. We made preamps and audio interfaces. That's how I first got introduced to PreSonus. And we would ship our audio interfaces with a free version of a recording software somebody else made. And it was fine, but we had this beautiful, great sounding interface that we were sending off, and then you on the other end had to kind of figure out what you were going to do software-wise. It's not terribly useful without the software, right? Well, we finally decided, you know what, it'd be great to make our own DAW, our own DAW, and we did, and it's incredible. We always meant for it to just be something that we pair with our interfaces, and now it has become this big thing that thousands of people are using to make music and choosing to go to this software from other pieces of software. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's it. This software won me over, and perhaps it's the right choice for you as well. You're watching this because you were at least a little bit intrigued. So one of the cool things about Studio One, as you can see, I just tracked a vocal. Playback hasn't stopped. The vocal is recorded, but I can rewind to the beginning and start listening without ever stopping playback. We can say, okay, let's take a listen and see how this sounds.
I don't wanna look.
See, I never liked the first line of a vocal. That's one of the hardest lines to sing, so I want to go back and punch that in. But notice how I don't lose the music ever. Studio One, the engine in Studio One can handle me rewinding, punching in, punching out, doing whatever I need to do without ever stopping playback. So as a musician, not only the guy pushing all the buttons, as a musician, I feel like I'm in the music more. Let's get back to that first vocal, that first line, and punch that in. Almost came in too early. Here we go.
I don't wanna look.
Nope.
I don't wanna.
Didn't like it. Let's do it again.
I don't wanna look. I don't wanna see what's under the hood.
Okay. That felt better. That I can live with. I'm pretty happy with the way that sounds. So now what do we want to do? Well, we can continue doing the whole vocal, which I'm not going to do because that would be probably a waste of your time. We'll focus on this 2-verse section. But what can we do from here? Well, we can add a layer. We can do another take of vocals. Let's do that. Notice how playback still hasn't stopped. Let's do one more take of vocals, then I'll show you how I like to punch things in.
I don't wanna look, I don't wanna see what's under the hood. Don't wanna be anything but good, and I can't be, but something's there, and I act like I don't care, blissfully unaware. Oh, and it's killing me.
All right, so I can live with that vocal. But there's something about that second verse that got me. Let's switch over there.
And I can't be, but something's there.
That part felt a little bit pitchy, so I'm going to punch that in. I'm just going to rewind and hit the record button on that
And I
line.
can't be, but something's there. And I act like I don't think
Do that one more time.
but good. And I can't be, but something's there. And I act like I don't care.
Last half of that phrase was a little wonky. Let's punch that in.
And I act like I don't care. Blissfully unaware. Oh, and it's killing me.
Yeah. I can get down with that vocal. I can live with that. So one of the things that's I surprised vocalists that I've worked with when I have them come to my home studio and work is I'll tell them, okay, let's go back and get that. And they're expecting it to take, 10, 15 seconds to get ready to record. But once they realize the way that I work and the way Studio One allows me to work, they realize they can stay in it. They don't have to kind of pull themselves out of that zone of singing, which if you're a singer or a performer of any sort, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of times the software can bring everything to a grinding halt. Studio One doesn't allow that. If you want to stop things and work that way, you absolutely can, but Studio One has the engine to be able to just keep the music going the whole time, which to me, it becomes an inspiring piece of software that molds to my workflow rather than forcing me to mold my workflow to its layout. And that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed about Studio One over the years. So this is the first time since I hit play at the very beginning that I've stopped playback in Studio One. And we've managed to, what have we done so far? We recorded a vocal, we punched in some vocals, we added a new layer or a new take, we recorded that, we also punched that in. All without ever stopping playback. I remember that would be a dream of mine when I was using Pro Tools. It was a lot of start and stop. Okay, I've said enough on that. Let's move on to doing some comping here. So we got a vocal. What do we want to do? Well, we want to take both of these vocal takes. We want to get the best of both. So as we can see there's two layers here. I'm going to add another one and call this one comp. So now if we're looking at the screen, this is vocal 1, this is vocal 2, and this is the main vocal. We can stop the record enable on that one. By the way, if I want to record enable, I just press R. If I want to solo, I press S. If I want to mute, guess what? I press M. Super, super handy and intuitive. Like I just discovered that on accident one day. Very handy. So now we want to comp these vocals. Well, if I hit play right now, we're not going to hear any vocal, right? So we got to bring these vocals up. But instead of bringing them up, we can just audition them by pressing this little solo button here. Now we're listening to the first vocal.
I don't wanna look,
And we can switch to the second vocal.
I don't wanna look.
I much prefer the second vocal. So I just drag over it and Studio One brings it up. Let's keep going.
I don't wanna look, I don't wanna see what's under the hood.
Didn't like that. Let's try the second take.
Don't wanna see what's under the hood.
That one was more pitchy, but I liked it better.
Don't wanna be anything but good.
Nope.
Don't wanna be anything but good.
Let's let's split the difference. Let's get the first half of that one, second half of that one, shall we? All right, and let's go quickly. I'll quickly comp the rest of this real quick.
But good, and it can't be, but something's there.
I think I like this one better.
But good, but something's there.
Yeah.
And I act like I don't care. Blissfully unaware.
That's fine.
And it's killing me.
Okay, you can see how very quickly we could go through 2, 4, 6 vocal takes and very, very quickly put together our comp. We haven't changed the original takes, but we've copied them up here. Here's another great way that Studio One makes my life easier. Look what happens when I zoom in on this comp track. What do you see right here? What is that right there? It's a crossfade. We all know, if you've done any amount of audio editing, when you start bringing files together and comping things together, you invariably have all these pops and clicks in the audio at the crossover point between audio files. You always have to go in and add crossfades. Well, Studio One said, well, since you're always going to do that, why don't we just add that by default? It even adds it when I punch a part in. Let's punch in one line of this vocal real quick.
Don't wanna see what's under the...
And look. It added the crossfades at the punch in point and the punch out point. We're not going to keep that take, but I just wanted to show you that. So now we have a vocal that has been comped together in no time. We've again allowed ourselves to continue with the music going and just piece this thing together, and it's been great. So now let's duplicate this. So we can always come back to this comp part. Let's duplicate this layer. We'll call this one tuned, okay? So now we have a total of 4 layers. Take 1, take 2, the comp, and now the tuned vocal. What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna take that audio file and just bounce it down to a new file, which is a simple shortcut. Then, check this out. This is something that Studio One does better than anybody. I have this audio selected. I press Command M. Look what happens. You see that? Melodyne Essential is built in to Studio One Professional. That means I don't have to install an extra plugin. I don't have to render this out somewhere else. If you've played the tuning game, it can be really annoying. You have to render it into the tuning software so it can listen to it. Then you do your stuff. Then you have to export it back out. It's a process. We use the ARA integration with Melodyne to do this right off the bat. So you can see it checked all the notes. I can come do a very basic, just 100% on both just for a quick demo, and now we can listen. The vocal is in tune.
I don't wanna look, I don't wanna see what's under the hood.
So it missed a note there, but all we have to do is select the note, double click just in the upper region above that note, and it'll split it into the right note. So Melodyne's not gonna always be perfect, especially when you're an imperfect singer, but
what's under the hood.
And just like that, we've got a tuned vocal. Now, we don't want Melodyne, it's essentially tuning it in real time, right? Well, once we got it tuned, we can just render that out. Studio One lets us do that in a really cool way. If I open this sidebar over here, I can see on this file, I've got an event effect called Melodyne. If I click render, it does a bounce of Melodyne. Now, what's really cool is if I come in here later and I'm listening and say, oh, the tuning's not right on this second line.
Don't wanna be anything but good.
It missed a couple of notes there, which is pretty common. You should probably go through and listen to the tuning before you render it out. Well, guess what? We're not stuck. Sorry, I hit a wrong button. We're not stuck there. We can come back over here and click this restore button, and guess what? It comes back to its previous state. Melodyne's right there. I can zoom out and I can make any of the changes I need to make. And now this vocal line sounds right.
Don't wanna be anything but good.
And now we can say, all right, wonderful, thank you so much, Melodyne. You can take a break. We render it again. And we can do this over and over. We're not adding any extra. It's essentially an undo process, but just for this vocal, just for Melodyne. It also works with plugins like Vocaline, things like that. I can restore it, make the adjustments, and then go back to its rendered state, which means Melodyne isn't constantly tuning it. It saves processing power, but we never are stuck saying, I can't go back now, because that would be really terrible. Speaking of Melodyne, check this out. Since we already have Melodyne integrated, and Melodyne's already analyzing the audio in the session and determining what the notes are, we can take that one step further and use Melodyne as a ridiculously cool production tool. That rhymed. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. Check it out. So here is a pair of background vocals that repeat themselves throughout the song. Now watch what happens. Let's select this one. Let's hit Command M and Melodyne it. Okay, we can see the notes are there. It picked out what the notes are, right? Now let's open up the browser window. Let's find an instrument and let's drag it in. So I just dragged an instrument in with a preset and it pulled this up. Very cool. Let's turn that volume down a little bit and let's drag this audio with Melodyne on it to this instrument track. Look what happens. It copied the note information, interpolated that from Melodyne into MIDI notes on the track, and now we have this. Let's take that up an octave or two. Think about the implications of that. You can now, if you can't play keyboard, or you've got a really cool vocal part that you'd love to double on a synth or a piano or any sort of part, like a melodic thing, even a bass line, you can sing it into a microphone, Melodyne it, drag that to a MIDI track, set up whatever synth patch you want, and now you have sung your MIDI parts, and it's all just a part of Studio One. Speaking of editing, one of the big hurdles I had to jump over mentally was using Studio One as my primary source for audio editing. I learned a workflow in Pro Tools that I did not want to leave in Studio One. Studio One worked differently for audio editing, and in my head, there was no editor better than Pro Tools. Well, guess what? Once I realized how Studio One was set up, I realized its editing workflow was better than Pro Tools and made me a lot faster. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's group these tracks together real quick. So these are my drum tracks here, these blue tracks, okay? Now, historically, if you wanted to edit drums, let's say, sorry, this drummer is an absolute beast and he never plays out of time, but here, you can see if I zoom in, he's a little bit behind the beat with that kick drum. Now, if I wanted to do what we call in Nashville pocket that kick drum, I would do something along the lines of, this. I would select the audio here, slice it back. I'd come over here and slice that. So now I have an individual piece of audio. I would drag it back to get it in time. Then I would come over here and drag that back and do a crossfade and then do a crossfade there, right? About 5-6 steps. Studio One makes this redonkulously easy. Check it out. I can say, okay, this is what I want to edit. I can select it like that and then double click. It separates it. Then I can hold down, this is on the Mac, Command and Option. It's Control Alt, I believe, on the PC. And look what I can do. I can now drag this audio underneath the endpoints. We call it slip edit. And instead of having to move the ends of those regions or those events, I can just go like this. Now it's in time, and then I can press X, and we got crossfades on either side. That's a little close. I can just drag it over like that, and we're done. That is, if you do any manual editing, maybe you don't want to do like automatic quantizing, which Studio One will do. You want to do it a little more manually. You just want to do a few notes at a time, which is the way I like to work. This is a godsend because you can come in and you can say, oh man, bass player, come on, bro, you came in a little bit late here, and you can just slice it there, do this number, crossfade, he's in time, back to work. It is just an incredible workflow. If you do any audio editing, whether it's for podcasting, music, or anything in between, imagine how much time you save over the course of an entire song, entire album, entire audiobook with this kind of simple but powerful editing. All right, let's move into mixing, which is my personal favorite thing to do in Studio One, and the first thing that I started doing there. When I first heard about Studio One back in 10 years ago, one of the big features they showed us was that there's this ability to do a lot of drag and drop. inside of Studio One. And I remember thinking, well, I'm a professional. I don't need, I like to go to menus. So back in the day, let's take our vocal, for example. Let's open up the mixer. Here, this yellow track is my vocal. This is how I like to add plugins back in the day. I would hit plus, then I would go find the category, dynamics, then I would go find my favorite compressor and select it. Not a super fast way to work, especially if you have a decent list of plugins. Studio One said, let's completely change the way this works. We have a plugin window that stays open on the right-hand side, the way that I like to work. And we can literally just drag plugins from our list. So I can keep a set of favorite plugins up here. For example, like our Fat Channel plugin. I can just drag it on the track and let go. And there it is. It opens it on the track and opens the window so we can start adjusting. More than that, we can do that on individual tracks as well. If I want to put an EQ on this loop 2 track, you can see I can just drag it onto the waveform and it puts it on that audio track and opens the plugin for me. I don't have to open the mixer window at all. I can still see the plugins over here on the left-hand side with that little inspector window, but I can just go like this, just add the plugins where I need them and be good to go. So, for example, on this vocal track, we've added our Fat Channel plugin, which is an incredible set of emulations of different analog hardware compressors and EQs. Let's dial in a vocal sound super quick on this verse that we just recorded. So right here.
I don't wanna look.
Let's get some compression going.
I don't wanna look. I don't wanna see what's under the hood.
Roll off some lows, get rid of a little bit of that kind of woofy mid-range. A little shelf to make it not quite as boomy, and a little boost up at 8K.
I don't wanna look.
There we go.
I don't wanna see what's under the hood.
Now, let's say we want to add a slapback delay. How would you do that in another system? Okay, you take a couple steps. You create a bus or an auxiliary track. You add your delay plugin to that track. You then come over to the vocal and you add a send on that track to send to that particular effect that you want. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. All you have to do is find the plugin that you want over here on the right-hand side, which for me is this analog delay. I've got presets here if I want, or I can just drag the actual plugin itself. I'll just drag the plugin. Watch what happens. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to let it go here on the send section of this vocal track, and look what happens. Boink. Did you catch that? It was really fast. It created a send. It created an effects return channel with that plugin on there. It named the channel analog delay. It named the send analog delay, and it turned the send up and sent it to the delay. So when I hit play,
I don't wanna look.
the delay is right there. Now, of course, we can go, that's defaulted to a dotted eighth note because I'm a guitar player, but that's how easy it is to add. So when you think of the drag and drop thing, you might be like me and think, drag and drop. Who needs to drag and drop things? This is an incredibly cool workflow. And I find myself doing it all the time with plugins. Even like if you downloaded an expansion from our website, an add-on of some sorts, you just go to the start page, open up your download folder, drag that onto the start page, and Studio One installs it. Like you can drag and drop just about everything. It's really cool. Okay, now staying with the mixing theme, here are a couple of other things that just blew me away when I first started using Studio One and are still some of my favorite settings. I'm going to turn that group off on the drums to show you this because I rarely use groups, honestly. In Pro Tools, I remember if I wanted to listen to my drum tracks, whatever system you use, how do you go about listening to your drums? So just so you know, the session is set up. I've got all my audio tracks on the left, and then I've got all these kind of master buses on the right for drums, bass, acoustic, electric, keys, vocals, background vocals, like a subgroup section here in red with some effects over here on the right. How would you solo your drums in the system that you use? Well, I'll tell you how I used to have to do it. I would go over here, and I would select the drums, I would group them, and then I could click the solo button to solo them. But I'd have to remember to turn that group on and off. Or I'd do this number, and I've seen like good friends of mine on YouTube doing this to solo their drums. And that's just it's a small drum kit here. It's only, 7 tracks? It's only 7 clicks. Not a huge deal, but if you're talking about, 12, 13 tracks, or here I've got a bunch of loop tracks and a bunch of drum tracks. If I want to solo those, it becomes quite the task, and all I want to do is listen to the drums. Well, guess what? I go over to the drums bus, and I just hit the solo button. So what's happening? Studio One knows. It's intuitive. It knows there is no reason. I remember doing this in Pro Tools. I would click the solo button on the drums, and this is what it would sound like. Nothing, because it was only listening to that empty solo bus, because when I hit solo on the bus, it mutes everything in the session. Studio One's smarter than that. It says if you hit solo on a drum bus, chances are what you're wanting to hear are the drums. So it goes through and it looks at what's feeding this bus. We can see a list here. There's a slurp track in this song. It looks at what's feeding this bus and it opens them up. So you can see when I hit solo on this bus, it opens up and also solos the tracks feeding that bus. Not only that, it will also solo any effects that are going that particular track is feeding. So if I go back and solo this vocal we had, it's also going to make sure it solos the analog delay that it's feeding. I don't have to manually go in and remember to do solo safe, although you can. It just does it. If I solo the analog delay, guess what? I'm hearing the delayed signal. It knows to even though it's muted the main vocal, it knows to still let the signal come through so I can hear what the delay sounds like. Try listening to your delay in whatever system you use. You can't. You've got to go do some sort of pre-fader send and trick the system, turn the fader down on the main vocal or something, and then you can hear exactly what your delay sounds like. I can hear just my delay by clicking on the track and pressing S for solo, and I can listen to it. It's really intuitive. Another thing, what if I want to adjust, here's my electric guitars, these blue tracks here. What if I decided, they're all just a little too loud. I don't want to turn the bus down because I like where that fader is. It's kind of right at 0, but I just need to turn these tracks down. Well, how do you do that? Well, you could do a group and then pull them down, but then when you forget about the group and you move one fader, the rest of the group moves. Well, Studio One, all I have to do is click here, hold down Shift, click here, and then move a fader. And look, it all moves together. While they're selected, I say, you know what? I want an EQ on every channel. Boom. It put that EQ on all the channels. And then guess what? When I click here, so I only have one channel selected, I move that fader, just that fader moves. I didn't have to create a permanent group. I didn't have to enable and disable groups. I literally just selected the tracks I want. I can choose only these and then move faders. And it moves them. And then when I click away, it moves on to the next thing. That's the way this should work. I don't need those drum faders to all be linked forever and ever. I need to be able to say, oh, these are all too loud. Yoink, turn them down. Then move on with my day. I don't need groups. I don't need all that extra stuff and remember what the keyboard shortcut was for that group. I just do it. I just work. And it works with lots of different settings. I showed you how to do plugins. It also works with this little input trim at the top. If I don't want to move the faders, I want to adjust the trim, I can do that. If I want to flip the phase or the polarity of the tracks, I can do that. If I want to change the colors of these tracks, I can select them and click down here and choose the color. Anyway, you don't need me to show you how to color code your tracks, but there's a lot going on there. Final thing I want to show you that is really great with Studio One Professional is the project page, which is our mastering platform. Cool thing about it, you can do mastering on it, of course, but you can also, it synchronizes with your song. So I can take this song and I can say, okay, I'm done with this. I want to add this to the project. This one's called Mastering 101. And what Studio One does now is pretty incredible. It switches over and it says, okay, let me do a mix down and send it to that mastering project. And it does it for me automatically. This song is now a part of this mastering project. Now, let's close the mastering project. Let's go back to the song, and let's say we made a few adjustments after lunch. We said, you know what, let's turn these tracks down. We hit save, we leave it. We come back next week and open up the mastering session. Guess what happens? It says, yo, these songs have been updated since the last time you rendered out the mixdowns. There's a new version of this song. Do you want to update the mastering file? And I say, yeah, I do. Guess what? It goes and opens each song one by one, renders down the latest mix, and drops that in place of the previous mix in the project page. Let that sit in your imagination for a minute and you can see how powerful that is. Not only for mixing and mastering if you're doing both, but also for project management, keeping up with the latest mix on an EP that you're only recording or producing and not planning to mix. It all stays in that one project page, all stays in sync, and you don't have to do hardly anything to make it happen. Okay, I hope this has piqued your interest in Studio One. If you want to check it out, we've got a lot more information on our YouTube channel and on our website. I've only scratched the surface here today. You can check out a free version of Studio One called Studio One Prime. That's on our website. Or you can check out Studio One Artist, or Studio One Professional. Both are available for purchase, or you can get Studio One Professional as a part of our PreSonus Sphere membership for just $14.95 a month. You get access to Studio One Professional, all the add-ons from the PreSonus shop, Notion, our notation software, plus monthly training videos and live streams from myself and other members here at PreSonus. Thanks for watching. See you around.
Get back up and fight.